Okay, everybody, cue spoon and music in three, two, one.
We'll just jump right into it.
Are you a fan of horrors at all, Jensen?
You know, no. I'll say no. And I just don't really think I've really seen any. And it kind of I feel like people define horror movies a little bit differently. Like there's obviously the very like classic ones that you would think of like off the top of your head when you think of a horror movie, but then there's other ones where one of my friends was describing. Have you seen the movie Parasite that won? I believe it won Best Picture.
Ooh, no, I have mate, it won loads of
Yeah,
stuff.
it won a ton.
I
I was
haven't
trying to
seen
remember.
that
I
though,
know. I
but
know
I
it
have
won
been
best
meaning
foreign
to.
film, but I was trying to remember if it won best picture because that was like the big buzz. Was the first foreign movie to be nominated, or maybe not nominated, but anyway, there was hype for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like
No, it was definitely nominated for best movie of the year, and it
yeah,
definitely won best foreign. I don't know if it won any others, but yeah,
yeah.
sorry, continue.
But so what I was saying was one of my friends was describing that as like a horror movie because he was saying that he wasn't a big fan of them, and I would describe that as more of a thriller. And even I think like the technical genre is like dark comedy, which is a weird thing to say. I'm not going to say anything about the movie. I do recommend that you go watch it. It's just a really good movie, and it's just really interesting.
100%.
So, but yeah, I don't know. The horror genre is like it's like that. There's the very clear cut and dry ones that you see, and they're everywhere, and they're always like PG-13, is that they always have like nuns or ghosts or curses. Like it's like,
Yeah, it kind of is.
and
Yeah.
I don't know that genre of horror very much. I will say, actually, the one genre of horror that I have seen a bit of and enjoy is like the parody horror genre. Like the scary
Okay,
movies
like
and
the scary
and
movie
and Tucker
franchise.
and
Yeah,
Dale versus Evil. And have you seen that movie, by the way?
yeah. That
Love that
I
movie.
I haven't seen
So
Tucker and
funny.
Dale.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
So
That's a big
okay,
recommend.
so I because I love what you said about almost obviously there are the clear cut ones, but besides from those, it almost depends on the person of what they would define as a horror.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, what would you define as a horror?
I would say really just like the cut and dry ones. And I think everything else can probably fall under some kind of like psychological thriller type movie. That would be probably my way of
Okay.
going about it personally. But
Yeah, because I think what I like where a movie is defined personally as a horror is often when it's supernatural, and that can quite easily define for me horrors from thrillers. So if it's something, if it's like I don't know, just like some sort of weird demon creature thing, that for me is often a thriller or a horror even. It's the kind of thing where you're not even sure if you want to look, that kind of thing. And I have
hmm,
seen a few of those, but only because it's been something that like my mates have been watching. So
yeah.
there's this one, and it wasn't even that good of a movie, but I think it was called like Don't Knock Twice. There was another one where the creature would only like be there in the dark. So there's like a
Whoa.
scene when
There's an
he's running
original
through this
idea.
where yeah, right. So like this guy's running through a warehouse, and there's like spotlights on different bits, and so he's running, and then just as he
Oh, okay.
gets through like the last two spotlights, he gets like scratched on the back of the leg, and it's just like, ooh, what's gonna happen? And then all the lights go out, and he dies, and so it's like, yes, yeah, sure. I'm just not a fan. I just think a lot of them aren't very well made as well, and that's where the thriller aspect of it works so well for me. So obviously, like I said, the difference between a thriller and a horror is like supernatural or not. So
Okay.
my favorite thriller of all time is this absolutely brilliant movie that's called Don't Breathe. And basically
I
these
was gonna ask
three,
you about that actually, because
honestly,
that's the one that came to mind.
whew,
So I have two questions with regards to what you were just saying, and one, yeah, is exactly what you were about to just talk about, which is the Don't Breathe movie, which I haven't seen it. I remember the trailers. Is it the one where there is the
wow,
blind guy and he is in the house, and then the
yes,
teenagers like get in the house and they're like, oh, we can rob him because he's blind, and then he like
yes,
shuts off all the power or whatever, and then they're just like in there with this apparently maniacal blind man who's like defending his property, but is also very creepy.
Honestly, it's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, so basically he is just not what they thought he was. Okay. They get into the house and it just all goes pear-shaped, but it is just brilliant. And the one thing that really stuck out to me was the filming style. So without giving too much away, there's one bit when they're in the house, there's the three of them at this point, and the camera is like it's almost like it's on a drone, so it'll fly and go up to the person's face and look at them looking around the house, and then it'll fade out and go into a different room, next person's face. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is brilliant. Like, I am on the edge of my seat. I can't, like, I'm not going to make a noise right now because I'm scared that they're going to hear me in the movie. That's how well made it was for me. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. So I must have seen that probably about 3-4 years ago now, and I'm still saying hands down it's my favorite thriller ever. Such a good movie, and I'd highly recommend. I don't think they've made a second one, but I think it's the kind of movie where it does not need it at all. And it's got quite a decent cast as well. So the blind guy has been in a bunch of stuff. One of the robbers as well. I cannot remember what his name is, but he's in loads. I think he's about like mid-20s now, and he's been acting for probably like a solid 5-6 years. He's brilliant. Yeah, absolutely class movie. And so if you are up for something that is a bit more like it's suspense and not like I'm going to try and scare you,
Hmm.
that is 100% what you're up for. I think that's brilliant. Have you got like a preferred thriller, or like almost like a go-to if someone asks you what to recommend?
Well, let me hold on. Let me get to that in 1 second. There was something you said before
Okay, go on.
about one of your problems with horror movies being not very well made, and there's actually a reason for that. And the reason is because horror movies are one of the easiest movies to make with a low budget. And so directors who are trying to get in and make a quick buck with a low budget, like if you look at obviously if you look at the highest grossing films of a normal year, not this year obviously, but a normal year where theaters are open, it's going to be like the big budget blockbusters at the top, the Marvel movies, the Star Warses, and then but the ones that make the most money per like amount spent on the movie itself are almost always going to be the horror movies because
Hmm.
of stuff like you have the lights off half the time, you rely on different methods of making it, and you can make the whole movie in one house. Like if you think of like the paranormal movies, which I've never seen, but I've seen enough parody and reviews of them to know that it's a lot of like watching a person sleep and then just weird stuff happens, and that costs almost nothing because you're filming in like one house location the whole time, and they made tons of those movies, and they
Hmm.
all made bank even after it was popular. So that's an interesting point you brought up, is well they're not very well made, and there's a very good reason for that, is because people will go see it kind of anyway, and often you don't even need a very
But yeah,
original
funnily enough, they
idea for it to work. Yeah.
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 But compared to how much money they've actually put into it, no, again, right back at you. That is a very good point. Um, but yeah, I just think I don't know. That's kind of what does it for me. What was your second question
Oh,
or
the
point?
second the
Sorry.
second one was, I was going to go into detail about you saying it, the supernatural aspect, because I thought that was interesting, because for me I could, well, I guess there's like subgenres of horror. Like there's like the slasher ones, which I would still assign as horror, which is usually like a person, right, who's going about like killing people, and I think those can still be horror movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's an interesting distinction, that putting the supernatural element on it. I definitely hadn't thought about it that way before.
Mm.
Anyway, going back to your other question, you said a go to, and I'm not sure if I have one exactly, but and I'm just sounding like every person who has a favorite director, and it's almost always going to be Chris Nolan. I think you can. I've been watching a lot of his movies recently with my little brothers because they haven't really seen any up to this point, and so we watched through the Batman trilogy, which is great. They watched
Oof. Yeah.
Inception, which is another great film, And then just the other night, actually,
Yeah.
we watched Interstellar, which I hadn't seen really since it came
Oh,
out.
really?
Yeah, I just
Boy,
hadn't gotten around to it, and I had forgotten
brilliant. Yeah.
how tense that movie really was. And yeah, I'm just gonna talk about it a little bit. So, spoiler warning: go see the movie; it's phenomenal. And three, two, one. Okay, so the point where they go and rescue Matt Damon's character, dude.
Mm.
The I knowing what was gonna happen was so interesting because you just notice the score of the movie, and Hans Zimmer made the score, so obviously it's incredible. And space epics always have great music, generally speaking, because it's just so majestic. But there was two things I noticed with regards to the sound of that movie, and one was particularly the build up to when Matthew McConaughey gets betrayed by Matt Damon's character, and just how eerie and tense the music was getting. And the dialogue was a little bit on the nose, especially if you know what was happening. Matt Damon's like, yeah, it's really hard to be alone, and da 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 da. And it's like all this. He just starts saying all these things. You're like, yeah, he's definitely about to push this guy off a cliff. Uh, and then the music obviously complements that. And then the other thing about the music was how often there wasn't any. And at a number of points throughout the film, there is either no sound because there's no sound in space, and so you're getting like an exterior shot of the ship or something, and it's just silence because that's what space is, or the music cuts out and you just hear like breathing or people reacting or being tense because they're firing their last booster and they need to make it out, and they have 2 seconds to make the maneuver or they're gonna get crushed by something. Yeah, fantastic movie, and just a lot more intense than I had remembered from
Yeah.
the first time when I watched it.
Yeah. Have you seen Tenet yet?
I have not. Have you?
Oh, I've seen it twice,
Dude.
both of the times in the cinema. Funnily
Okay.
enough, my family have just gone to see it as well, and I was like, "No, I've got a pod with the boys tonight. Like, I can't
Ah.
go." And I've already seen it twice, so
Okay.
I think it was worth it. But yeah, all my days. So I, again, I'm not going to say too much about it at all,
Yeah.
but kind of that Inception, Interstellar, that is just the vibe that you get off, and give it like 5-10 minutes when you're in there, and you're like, yeah, this is just going to be sick, and it's
Yeah.
so well made. Um, what's the name of the lead
John David
actor?
Washington.
Denzel Washington's son. Wow, man, like he's just got the voice of his dad. Like there's
I didn't know they were
you can
related.
hear it if you closed
That's
your eyes. You'd be
hilarious.
like, really?
Yeah, because I had seen him
Like you?
in the HBO show Ballers, and he plays a football player and it's him and The Rock and a bunch of other people.
Ah,
But yeah, I hadn't. That's
I
funny.
did not know he was in that.
I just never put those two together. So I had already liked him from that and
Literally,
one
like
other
now,
thing. That's cool though.
yeah. Now that you know, you can close your eyes and it could be Denzel. Like that's how similar it is. But I just think that's great, and yeah, he's a a class actor even. And then it's got the guy who's going to be playing the new Batman,
Robert Pattinson.
um, Robert Pattinson as well, who plays a very cool character in that. I think that's probably I was not a massive fan of him or his work, but saw him in that and I was like, yes, mate, that is just like that's what I feel like he could do more of. And so,
You know what?
hopefully,
I actually saw him in a
yeah, go
movie
on.
just recently, which came out, and it's the Tom Holland one, on Netflix, The Devil All
This
the
is Robert
Time.
Pattinson, is it?
Yeah, Robert Pattinson's in it, playing a shorter role.
Okay.
But yeah, that's another interesting movie because it's kind of like it's a little bit thriller-ish. Not really. It's a little bit. It's like a slow burn thriller, I would say, maybe. Uh, I mean, the basic rundown is that it is what, the 1950s or something in the South, and they have all these people getting home from war, and it kind of follows like three different like threads of people that kind of all intersect at various points. And then it's
Oh
just kind of
wow.
follow, like, starts at the beginning, and then they have a kid, and this all happens, and they kind of like show how they
It
come
is good when
together.
it
And
starts at the beginning, to be fair. I do like when that happens. That is good.
But yeah, and it was really interesting. And Pattinson's character is like
Okay.
it's like he's just this very like I don't know. Is very like smarmy and gross, and Pattinson plays it like so well, and I'm really excited to see him in the new Batman.
I
I think
mean,
he's
he
gonna knock it out of the park.
like I said, yeah. So that funnily enough, that was one thing I did want to ask you because I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about Robert Pattinson being the new Batman and
Yeah,
how is that going to look? Is he going to be any good? I honestly don't think I've made my mind up yet. So that does mean that I'm willing to be sort of like thrown one side to the other. Why or like can you back it up why you think it's going to work out?
yeah, absolutely.
That is a
And
very on the spot question, by the way. So feel free if there's not a massive
oh, dude,
answer.
I've been preparing for this for months. Um, no, it's actually what's really cool
Oh,
is
good. Nice.
the like Warner Brothers has put out maybe a month ago or so. They put out some documentaries about both Batman and the Joker specifically, and like an hour long, just free on YouTube. It's just kind of about like the comic book
Wow.
origins and the history. Is really fascinating. Really really interesting stuff. And one thing that stuck out to me was there was a point where they talk about there was a point in between Chris Nolan's Batman Begins and the previous Batman, which had been Batman and Robin, which was the George Clooney one that was just the worst. And people thought that they had pretty much killed off the character of Batman, and he had been such a staple of Adam's. Was it? I don't want to say Adam Silver. I don't think that's his name. But the TV show Batman. Then it kind of evolved into like the Tim Burton and Michael Keaton, all that. Anyway, it went on this whole journey and
Mm.
kind of came back around to like the campy, goofy version, and then people hated it and they thought like this is ridiculous. And then there in between when Chris Nolan made his movie, there was a plan to make a movie based on a comic book called Batman Year One, which was essentially just all about like strictly his origins, how he becomes Batman and how he like acquires the stuff.
Yeah.
And it was going to be a bit of a twist on that comic book series. Oh, it's a lot darker. That's a pretty key element. Is it's a much darker
Mm.
comic than others that had been put forward. And it looks like from the trailers and such that this new Batman movie is taking some elements from that, and you can kind of see like in his even
Oh,
in his
wow.
bat suit and his car. I think is just like I think it's a Corvette maybe, uh, and it's it's got like armor stuff like
Approve.
slapped on it. Yeah, I think it's a Corvette. I definitely could be wrong on that. It's super cool. Anyway, classic car, but yeah,
Well, he was
everything that comes
spotted just
forward
yeah, go on.
basically, in summary, it looks like they are taking ideas from really popular, um, really popular older material, and it seems like the direction they're going is going to be one that is unique from the Ben Affleck Batman, who I actually really liked, and also the Christian Bale, Chris Nolan Batman. And so I think it's going to be unique. I think Pattinson is a very versatile actor, and I think he's going to be well equipped to play. I'm really interested to see how he plays the Playboy part. I think the Batman part will come easy to him. And they make a very clear point in the trailer. Have you seen the
Huh.
trailer, by the way?
I don't think I have actually.
Okay, you should take a look because there's a point where he's like, they're like, who are you? And he's like, I am vengeance, and then just like beats the crap out of somebody. Uh, anyway, it looks sick. And the guy they have playing Alfred is I forget his name, but he was one of the main guys in Westworld. Um, and also he was in like Hunger Games too. He was like the tech guy. Anyway, all that to say, it's gonna have a good cast. I think
Whoa, wait a minute. Wait a minute. The Hunger Games guy who was he in a wheelchair
yes,
or something? He was like a yes. He's class. He is. He's really cool. Um, I'm a fan of that. I mean, to be fair, obviously you've backed up your point very, very nicely there. Is there anything else you'd like to
Jeffrey Wright
add
is
to
his
that
name. I
before
just,
I
just want
sort
to
of?
throw that out. Jeffrey Wright,
Yes,
that's his name. Uh,
yes.
uh, I need one thing I want to see. I need to watch The Lighthouse, which is the movie Pattinson's in with. I just forgot his name. He plays Goblin in the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Tell you what, Goblin's a sick baddie as well.
Really talented actor. Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe. There we go. Didn't need to look that one up.
Ah,
He's
yes.
anyway. He's in Lighthouse with Pattinson, and I've heard that's really good. And
Okay.
I think that he has the chops essentially. Like he's not Twilight that we saw before, and
Yeah.
I think we all liked
I
him as
think that
Cedric
definitely
Diggory in
like
Harry
tarnished
Potter
my view of him. Yeah, of course. That was class. That was really good. Well, I'm actually, after you see Tenet,
too.
I really want to, because I think, if anything, that will just cement your view of him being able to play that character,
Okay.
because he's very, very cool. He's a very cool character in Tenet. So I think you'll like that. If if I may sort of like just bounce some of what you said
Yep.
back onto you. So, because one thing you said is that you think that the Batman side of it, so obviously the Batman and the Playboy side of it, you think that the Batman would come easy to him. Where,
Yep.
funnily enough, I would expect the opposite. I would expect the Playboy thing, he'd be like, yeah, do that any day of the week. But the Batman's slightly more, almost the darker side of him. I mean, personally, I think he might struggle. Well, not necessarily struggle, but that would maybe come slightly less naturally, which is funny going off from what you said. But then also you're obviously just thinking, maybe taking it back to the what happened in the Twilight whole saga thing. He might be able to tap into that, channel a little bit of that. Hopefully not exactly the same, but maybe that's sort of like dark and mysterious and
Well,
eerie.
if I can,
I'm actually a bad. I'm not.
if I can expound a little bit, the Batman that he's going to be playing, I think, is quite different from the ones that we're used to seeing. In the trailer, he's actually like in a house with police doing investigative work, and I think that we're going to get more of the detective Batman that I think a lot of people are used to from like the comics and even some of the animated shows. He's called the world's greatest detective, and I think they're leaning into more of that, which I think is going to be really cool. And I believe one of the villains, I think there's multiple. One of the villains is going to be the Riddler, who's obviously like, if you're trying to make a detective movie, what better than a guy who just leaves
classic.
clues? Like, and what's funny as well, I don't know if it's funny. I've been playing the Telltale Batman games. There's two. It's like season 1 and season 2, and they're really good. I really do highly recommend them. It's impressive to me how much the choices matter in that game, and the story is really well told. And I think I'm seeing more of that Batman going to be played by Pattinson than the kind of Christian Bale, gravelly punch him up kind of.
Yeah.
Not that he won't
Yeah.
not that he won't punch people or do the fighting and martial arts, but I think we're in store for a lot more kind of detective thinking type of Batman, more so than just kind of the hack and slash, if you will.
Yeah. Then what we've recently seen, because I think obviously the Christian Bale and what was the
Ben
guy's
Affleck?
name in Batman versus and Ben Affleck, they were, I mean, I don't want to say like quite similar, because I feel like that can come across as a negative point, where I think they were both brilliant, but they were similar sorts of characters. And from what I'm taking from you, this is going to be not a complete switch, but looking at sort of another aspect of the Batman character that we all know and love, to this day. So I tell you what, I really, really need to see that trailer. You've got me. I can't even sit still now. I really, really need to see that. But yeah, I mean, I think basically we can both agree that we're definitely looking forward to it. He was actually spotted relatively recently on like one of the biggest buildings. I think it was in New York, with like a helicopter and stuff, and people were like, "That's Batman." That was pretty cool. But yeah, I really, really do need to see this trailer. And yes, so I really cannot wait till after you've seen Tenet, and to I can hear back on your views of that, because I
We'll have a
think you're
discussion
going to love it.
afterwards. I'll get on that soon. Theaters
Absolutely. And
relatively
anybody
recently,
out there,
so.
that is a yes, exactly. Anybody that is a fan of Christopher Nolan movies, Interstellar, Inception, the Batmans, this is going to be so far up your street. It's going to be ridiculous. So please go and watch it when you can. Um, yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening and or watching. We have both audio and video versions out of this podcast, so feel free to check us out on YouTube or anywhere podcasts can be found. This is Joel and Jensen with the Spewnedit lads, and we just love doing this. So thank you so much for tuning in.
100%. We would also love for you guys to get in touch. So what we've been talking about, obviously, about Robert Pattinson being the new Batman. We want to hear about what you guys think about that. Also, if you have seen the Tenet movie, let us know what you think. I'm a massive fan. Jensen hasn't seen it yet, but we are going to be talking about that at some point in the future. Obviously, talking about thrillers as well. Do you guys have a favorite thriller? And do you absolutely just disagree with what we've said? Let us know. Get in touch.
And we will see you guys in about a week.